Okay, good evening everyone. So in the last class, we are done with the read replicas on the RDS, right? So today we will discuss about multi-AG deployment of an RDS instance. Multi-AG. What is the meaning of multi-AG? Multi-group, not group, like more than one. So whenever you create a database instance using multi-AG deployment, wait a second. Just give me a second, guys.
So now let us discuss about the multi-AG deployment. So in the last sessions, we created the database using single AZ deployment. That means your database will be created and maintained in a single availability zone. And now coming to this multi-AG, whenever you create a database using the multi-AG deployment, two database instances will be created. Like one will be primary and the other will be secondary. We can call them as active standby mode. So in the two given databases, like let us say I'm creating one database using multi-AG deployment. So this was created in 1A. In the backend, there will be another database created in a different availability zone. So this is called as an active and this is called as a standby. That means all the time the users will be connected to the primary database only. And here the data will be continuously replicated from the active database to the standby database. By any chance, if the database got deleted, not deleted, if the database is not running, then it will become active and it will provide the service. That is what exactly multi-AG deployment means. The purpose of the multi-AG deployment is to improve the high availability, and to meet high availability. And remember, by using the multi-AG deployment, you cannot improve the performance. Multi-AG deployment is not meant for improving the performance. That is only to improve the availability of the database. Okay, right. So by using multi-AG deployment, we can improve the performance of we can improve the availability of the database. So whenever you create a database using multi-AG, along with the primary database, a standby instance will be created. A standby instance will be created, which will become primary in the case of failure of the actual primary database. But in this multi-AG, Amazon is providing different types of multi-AG. Let us say in the RDS, we have total 6 database engines, right? So now keep that Aurora aside. So under this multi-AG deployment, we have 2 different categories available. First one is multi-AG instance. And the second one is multi-AG cluster. And the third one is multi-AG Aurora. All these 3 will work in 3 different ways. Obviously, we can understand that the third one is only available for Aurora database engine. And the first 2 will be available for the other 5 database engines, like MySQL, or what we call that, PostgreSQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL. For all the databases, these 2 are available. And only for Aurora, you can see multi-AG Aurora, or we can say multi-AG cluster Aurora, or whatever it is. That is it has a unique feature. So now first, let us discuss about multi-AG instance. So here, if you create a multi-AG instance, like multi-AG deployment using the multi-AG instance, one primary database and one standby database instance will be created. Like I will show you that. Like this, one primary, we can call it as a primary, and one standby instance will be maintained in the backend. That means you cannot see this. You cannot see that. That will be available in the backend. Whenever it is failed, then it will become a primary. But if you delete it manually, Amazon considered that you don't need the database. That's why you are deleting. Multi-AG instance only provide the high availability in case of hardware failure, power failure, or availability zone failure. If you delete the database manually, Amazon doesn't think that that was accidentally deleted. Amazon will take that as you don't need the database. That's why you deleted it. That is the main problem with the multi-AG standby. If you delete the database even by mistakenly, Amazon will take that as you don't need the database. That's why you deleted. Okay. So here, if you write down about the multi-AG instance, in this deployment, one primary database will be created. One primary database will be created and a backend standby database instance will be created. And the data will be replicated from primary to standby continuously. All the data will be replicated. So in the case of failure of the primary instance, or we can say we can't see the standby instance. We cannot see that, or we cannot log in. We cannot see or we can't connect to the standby instance. You cannot see that. Okay. But in the case of failure of the primary database instance, the standby instance will become primary. The standby instance will become primary. So what kind of failure it will support? What kind of failures? Like hardware failure due to Amazon's problem. If the database is not available, then the backend standby instance will become a primary. Hardware failure, power failure, or availability zone failures, or network failure. These kind of Amazon related issues, if the primary goes down, then automatically the standby will become a primary. And then we have the other one called multi-AZ cluster. If you deploy using the multi-AZ cluster, in this deployment, three database instances will be created under, or we can say as a cluster. Totally 3 database instances will be created, and you can use all the 3 databases at a time. Out of the 3, 1 instance will be writer, other 2 instances will be available as readers. But the advantage with this is all the 3 instances will be used. Like you can redirect all the read actions to the reader instances. There will be 2 readers available, right? So whenever your application is having 100 read operations and 50 write operations you can move, you can forward to writer, and read operations can be redirected to the readers, so that you can use the standby instances with some advantage. So here we can use, or I can say we can connect to all 3 database instances at any time, and can redirect the read queries to the 2 readers, so that little bit performance will be improved. But if someone asks you like, can we use the multi-AG to improve the performance? That is not the actual goal of the multi-AG. Multi-AG is purely to improve the availability of your databases. So all the time, 24/7, your databases will be available for accessibility. And finally, we have multi-AZ for Aurora. That means this is only applicable for Aurora database instance. This is the multi-AZ deployment, which is only available for Aurora database engine. Aurora database engine. In this case, you can maintain one writer and as many readers as you want. In this deployment, you will get one writer and one reader under a cluster. This is the initial thing. But later, we can create as many readers as you want. As many readers as you want. That means I can create one writer and I can maintain 10 readers. If we delete the writer, automatically one of the reader will become writer. Automatically one of the reader will become a writer, which is a type of a operation not available for other database engines. If you go for MySQL and if you delete the primary or writer, automatically the entire setup will be considered as a deleted. But only in the multi-AG, if you delete the writer, then automatically the reader will become a writer. If you delete all the writers, like all the readers also, then only Amazon will consider that you don't need the database and hence you deleted that entire cluster. So now what is this Aurora? What is this Aurora? Because this multi-AG, we will use the Aurora to deploy. Aurora is an Amazon's proprietary database engine. Aurora is Amazon's database engine, which is developed using the open source database engines, which are like MySQL and PostgreSQL. These two are the open source. So they took the open source code and they designed their own Amazon Aurora database. But that is not a completely different database engine. Even though you select Aurora, that will work as either MySQL or PostgreSQL. Aurora is available in two different compatible modes. One is MySQL and the second one is PostgreSQL. Even if you create the Aurora, just the name is the different, but the inbuilt database engine might be either MySQL or PostgreSQL. So I can explain a different way that if your requirement is MySQL database, so you can select the MySQL database engine or you can select Aurora MySQL compatible engine. Both are same. But we have some advanced features available in Aurora. Because to promote their own database engine, Amazon is committed to provide 5 times better performance than MySQL and PostgreSQL. Aurora will provide 5 times better performance than MySQL and PostgreSQL. Also, it is cheaper than MySQL and PostgreSQL. It is cheaper than MySQL and PostgreSQL. And the whatever the backend storage they use to store the database, that storage will have auto recovery feature, or we can call it as self-healing feature. Generally, over a period of time, your hardware or a hard disk will get some read and write issues. Because of that, the performance will slows down. So this Aurora's storage disk is having a special feature called self-healing, which will auto recover, or what we call that, auto repair the block level issues of the hard disk. Let us say if your laptop is not working with much performance, then what we do, we will go to the hard disk and we will do some kind of a disk defragmentation, right? That we have to do manually, right? But this Aurora's hard disk, continuously it will monitor for errors in the hard disk, and if it found any errors in the storage hard disk, it will repair and it will recover all the failed hard disk blocks. So I can say that Aurora hard disk, or I can say Aurora storage disk, has a special feature called self-healing. What is that is, it will check for disk errors and automatically repair those errors if any. Based on that, Amazon will provide better performance than the other MySQL and PostgreSQL. And also here, this Aurora will store 6 copies of your database across 3 availability zones. That means in each availability zone, it will maintain 2 copies on different hardware, so that you will have more reliability. If 2 availability zones goes down at a time, you can recover all the data without any loss. But the remaining databases, they will maintain across minimum 2 availability zones or 2 copies. They don't maintain 6 copies of your data. They will maintain 2 to 3 copies of your database data. But Amazon Aurora will maintain 6 copies of your database across 3 availability zones. And also remember that Aurora is not free tier eligible. Even if you create a single AZ deployment, Aurora is not free tier eligible. The reason is, in Aurora, you don't get micro instance like T2.micro, T3.micro, or T4G.micro. You don't get micro instances. That's why the Aurora is not free tier eligible. The process of creation is the same. Just I will show you how to create, but I don't create. You guys can give it a try how to create. I will show you till the last option, like click on create database. So what I can say is create an RDS instance using Aurora database engine in Northern Virginia region. And you can select anything like 100 GB hard disk, 10 GB hard disk, that doesn't matter. The same options you can select as we selected for MySQL using Aurora database engine. One more thing you have to write down, like with MySQL compatibility. That means even though you are creating Aurora, it will work as a MySQL. We have 2 options, MySQL and PostgreSQL. Based on your requirement, you have to select the compatibility, so that Aurora will run as a MySQL database. And then what we do is create an RDS instance using Aurora MySQL compatibility using multi-AZ deployment in Northern Virginia region. This I will create and I will show you practically. So first I will show you the single AZ deployment of the Aurora, and we can confirm that there is no difference in the creation of MySQL and Aurora. Whatever the database engine is, the way how to create is the same. Maybe the features of the database might be different. The same way you can enable what we call that different options, like the same way you can enable like automated snapshots, point in time recovery, everything is the same. But we have a different unique feature available on Aurora, which is a backtrack that we can discuss once we are done with the deployments, multi-AZ deployment and all the things. Okay, so now, okay, anyways, I will create this. I will show you both the things because we can use the first one to test backtrack. Okay, right. Let me create that RDS instance using Aurora database engine. So log into your Amazon account. Okay, it seems I haven't logged in. Just give me a second. Okay, so then let me go to the RDS service. On the left side, click on database, and we don't have any database instances. Yesterday, we created all the databases. Then here, click on create database. So here, engine type select as Amazon Aurora. Engine type select as Amazon Aurora. The moment you select Amazon Aurora, you will get two different editions. One is MySQL compatible edition. The second one is PostgreSQL compatible edition. Select MySQL, scroll down. Is it required for the production or development? Let me select development. Database cluster identifier. You can use any name that is a cluster. Like I can say single AZ, or let me use Aurora single AZ. Just identifier, cluster identifier, username, admin, password. Let me assign a password. Then instance configuration, right? Let me select the burstable classes, which will provide you T series. But here you cannot see the micro. That's why I can say that Amazon Aurora is not eligible for free time. Out of all these, the smallest instance is 2 CPU, 2 GB of RAM, right? I will select T3.small so that I will be charged less. Would you like to create an Aurora replica? That means multi-AZ? No. First, we will go with the single AZ. Then we will go with multi-AZ. Do not create an Aurora replica. That means single AZ deployment. Scroll down. Select the VPC here. Like in which network you would like to create. And public access. Would you like to have the public access? Select yes. Then what is the security group? Which port we have to open? MySQL, right? In the Aurora, we are using MySQL. So we have to open the same MySQL. Already we created a security group. That's why I selected MySQL. If it is a PostgreSQL, I think the port number will be 5432. 5432. Or even you can select the what we call the PostgreSQL. So automatically it will show the port number. Availability zone, you can select some availability zone, or you can select no preference. So one of the 6, it will be created. And password authentication, and here additional configuration, database name. I can say dev, or let us say Aurora DB. This will be the database name. In the last session, we created my dev DB or something. That is the database name. And here failover priority. Keep it no preference, because while we are doing the multi-AZ deployment, I will explain about what is the failover priority. Then backup. How many days you would like to maintain the retention period? That you have to select here. Let me select 2 days. That means 2 days is the retention period. Then all the things are same. And here you can see enable backtrack. Later, I will explain what is that backtrack. Let me enable it. Let me enable it. So I will select, you can select some time target window. I will select 5 hours. That means I can roll back my database to 5 hours back. It is also same as a point in time recovery. But the thing is, point in time recovery will create a new database with the same data, right? But it will recover the data into the same database. It won't create a new database. That is the only difference between the backtrack and point in time recovery. This backtrack feature is only available in Aurora. It is not available in any other database engines. But for this backtrack, it will cost you $6 per month because I selected 5 hours. If I select 10 hours, I will get more money. I will get more charges. Maximum is 72 hours. Okay. So I will go with small one. Let us say 2 hours so that we will charge less amount. Because we don't use more than 2 hours now, right? Maximum we'll use 1 more hour. Then enable enhanced monitoring. Select all the required logs. All options are same as the other database engines. The only different options are failover priority, which we haven't selected yet. And the other one is a backtrack. I will show you what is that backtrack and how it works. And remaining all options same, just click on create database. So the database will be created. So now let me explain. So here you can see the database, right? You can see, but you can see 2 things. What are these 2 things? This is a cluster. Under the cluster, the database is created. Under the cluster, the database is created. You can click on the cluster and you can see the endpoint name here. And we don't have any reader instance as of now. We have only writer because there is a single AZ. If you create multi-AZ, you will get 1 reader also. So you can use writer instance all the time. If you select this writer endpoint URL, you will be connected to this one. But right now, the role is reader instance, right? Because still it is creating. Once it got created, it will become a writer only. As it is a single AZ deployment, you don't get any readers. You don't get any readers. If you create a reader, automatically this will become a multi-AZ deployment. But I will show you how to create the multi-AZ deployment. Definitely it will take 10 minutes of time to create. Okay. So now I will go with the creation of multi-AZ deployment of the RDS instance using Aurora. Okay. So here just click on create database in the same page. The only difference is instead of selecting do not create a reader replica, you have to select multi-AZ. All options are same. Select Amazon Aurora, MySQL compatible edition. You can select production or you can select dev. That doesn't matter. I will select dev or test. Identifier, I will say Aurora multi-AZ. That is the cluster identifier. That is not the database name. Username, let me enter a username. Instance configuration. Here also I will go with the burstable classes and I will select t3.small. Remember, this is not free tier eligible. And here under multi-AZ deployment, you have to select create an Aurora replica or a reader node in a different availability zone. So what is going to happen here is, first it will create 1 cluster, Aurora cluster. We will call it as Aurora cluster. And it doesn't store any data. It doesn't make available in any availability zone. This is a region. Here, there will be 2 endpoints will be created, writer and reader. I can say writer.com just for an example, and reader.com. These are the two endpoints will be generated. And here there will be one writer created. This will be the writer in 1A, and there will be one reader in a different availability zone. Okay. While creating the reader, you can select failover priority. Failover priority you can set. What I can set, I will select tier 0. It will start from 0 to 16. Then we have a feature that you can create as many readers as you want. Like almost you can create 16 readers. You can create 16 readers. Like I can create one more. These are the things manually we have to create. This will be the reader 1. This will be the reader 2. And you can create one more. 1D. This will be the reader 3. And for every reader, you have to give the priority like tier 1. And here you have to give tier 2. If by any chance, if the writer is down, we have a 3 readers, right? Which reader will become a writer? What is the meaning of first? The one which we created first? No. Whatever the reader is having, the lowest numbered tier, that will become writer first. This will have the highest priority because it has the priority called 0. The lowest numbered tier will have the highest priority. While creating, if I select this as 3, then this will become a writer. Because for the readers, you can select a different configuration size. Let us say this is 2 CPU and 4 GB of a RAM. This is having 2 CPU and 2 GB of a RAM. It is having 2 CPU, 8 GB of a RAM. It is having 2 CPU, 4 GB of a RAM. Which one is good to make it as a writer? This one, right? Because it has a more RAM. That's why you can select this as a 0. That is the reason that you can select the priority. Okay. But by default, the first instance, whatever the first reader will create automatically, that will be created the same as your writer instance. If it has a 2-4 CPU, here also you will get 2-4. But the remaining things you can customize it. Anyways, I don't create these many. I will create I will create 3. That doesn't matter, but for you, not required. Because whenever you create more, the charges will be more. Let us say for every instance, there is a $2. Then this you will get 2, here 2, and here 2. Totally 1, 2, 3, 4, $8 you will be charged. If you create only 2 readers, then $6. If you create only 1 reader, you will charge only 4. That's how it will work. Okay, so now let us create that multi-AZ deployment. The thing is here, multi-AZ deployment, you have to select create an Aurora replica. Then public access, yes. Security group, select the same MySQL because our Aurora is MySQL compatible. And in the additional configuration, let me say myProdDB. The database name is myProdDB. Okay. And here failover priority. I will select tier 0. That means which will have the highest priority. This will have the highest priority to become as a writer. With this step, we are going to create 1 writer and 1 reader. 1 writer and 1 reader. Okay, scroll down. And I will select 5 seconds. Like every 5 seconds, the health of the database will be checked. If something went wrong, within 5 seconds, your reader will become a writer. So you can select all the logs, required logs. And here, we don't enable auto miner version upgrade. All the options are same. There is no change in that. Okay, and click on create database. Did you find any difference other than the what we call that failover priority and backtrack? The same, right? So the database creation process will be the same. There is no change, but the way how they will operate is different. So in this case, you can see that this is the single AZ, right? This is the cluster. Under the cluster, you have only one writer. If I create a reader manually, this will become multi-AZ deployment. There is no doubt in that. But already we have a multi-AZ, right? So you can ignore this one. We can test the multi-AZ features on this particular cluster. So what I do is I will delete the existing single AZ deployment. So can I delete like this? I'm not getting delete option. Why? Might be you might say that the status is not available yet. It is doing something, right? So once it is available, then we can delete. You can see the database is not yet available. Let us wait, and I think like it will be better if we delete that at last. To avoid the confusion, we will delete that at a last. So here you can see this is our multi-AZ cluster which we created, right? And one writer and one reader is getting created. And at the time of creation, we haven't selected the availability zone. You can see that writer is creating in 1C and the reader is getting created in a different availability zone called 1A. And now what I do is I will connect to writer. I will connect to reader in two different tabs. I will create a table in the writer and the same will be updated into the reader. I will create some data into the writer and the same will be automatically replicated into the readers. That we will observe, and then I will create two more readers, because in this diagram I mentioned three readers, right? Reader 1, reader 2 and reader 3. So I will create two more readers. So the same data will be replicated across all the readers. If I delete the writer, automatically this will become a writer, and so on. If I delete this one, the next reader will become a writer. But it is not required to maintain 10 readers or 20 readers. Just 2 is more than enough, because at a time the writer and reader goes down, the other reader will become a writer. 2 readers is more than enough. Whenever you create more number of readers, the charges will be more. It will take like 5 to 10 minutes of time. We have to wait till the writer and reader to be created. Or can I create one more reader here? How to create the reader is you have to select the cluster. This is the one, right? Cluster, multi-AZ cluster. Click on actions, add reader. Let me try to create. Let me give them name as reader 2. Then I will create one more called reader 3. So instance identifier, I will give the name as reader 2. Can we create in a different region? But here it is not allowing me to delete, right? But there is an option, but that is a different procedure. I will show you that. But generally we don't use that, but I will show you. Because sometimes your organization might require the standby instance to be available in a different region. So then I will show you how to do that. Okay, so just select all the same options. Priority you can select as tier 1. If you don't select priority, it will get a random priority. Enable enhanced monitoring. Let me select 5 seconds. Now the reader 2 is getting created under the same cluster. Let me create one more. Add reader. So reader 1 is already available. Just reader 2 we created. Now we are going to create the reader 3. So reader 3, you cannot change the region. If you would like to change the region, first we have to create AWS region in the cluster. I will show you how to do that. Publicly accessible, enhanced monitoring. I will select 5 seconds and click on add reader. If you would like to create the reader in a different region, first what you have to do is, by default, it is not possible. To do that, select the cluster. So here you have to add AWS region. But what is the problem? Still they are in the creating process, right? Later you can, but again you will get some error. What is that is, you have to follow some instance requirements. You cannot use the t3.micro or something in the for that. I will show you, let them create. I will show you the warning message and all the things so that you can create. So finally you can see the writer is getting created. Now, how to log into the writer? So application developers will point their application to the writer, right? If I give the endpoint of this instance, after some time, if the writer got deleted, one of these three will become writer, right? So the application will not be able to connect your database instance until the developer log in to the application and they will modify the endpoint name. To avoid such kind of a things, if you click on the cluster, they will provide two URLs. One is a writer URL and the second one is a reader URL. What is the meaning of that is, this writer URL always points to the writer instance. Right now, one instance is a writer, right? After a few days, reader 2 became a writer. So the same URL will point to the reader 2. What about the reader instance? This reader instance will connect you to one of the existing readers. Randomly, you will be connected to one of the existing reader. If your organization wants to redirect all the read operations to the reader instances, this will be configured. Okay, so to log into the writer, this has to be used, this URL. So what I do is, to log into the Aurora also, we have to use the same SQL Yoke Community Edition. I don't want to use the reader. I will use the writer endpoint URL so that I will be connected to the writer instance. After some time, I will delete the writer instance completely so that the endpoint name should not work, right? But one of your readers will become a writer, and hence the same writer URL will be connected to the new writer automatically. No need to change the URL, no need to change the username, passwords, and all the things. Okay, let me click on new. So here I will type writer. Username is admin, password I entered. So always this connection will be connected to the writer. So here the database is myprod.db, and let me create a table like sample data. You can use anything, that doesn't matter. So serial number, the same way I will create numeric 2. Let us say name varchar 15, and let me say comments. So I created a table, and the same table will be replicated to all the readers automatically. Let me add some data. 1, name 1, some random data. 2, name 2, random data. 3, name 3. So I created 4 entries, right? Okay. We will wait till all the readers got available, or at least one reader to be available. At least one reader, because without having a reader, if you delete the writer, the data will not be replicated, right? That's why you have to wait till at least one reader is available. Let me refresh the page. So still all the readers are getting created. In the writer instance, we added some data, and I don't want to log into any readers. After all the readers are available, I will delete this writer instance. Automatically, this will become a writer, and the same old writer endpoint URL will connect you to the new writer instance. That's how you can maintain the high availability. There will be no downtime because no need to log into your database and no need to modify the configuration and everything, right? Okay, you have to wait. Okay, then in the meanwhile, I will show you how can you create a reader in a different region. So you have to select the cluster and you have to click on add AWS region. Okay. So actually we enable the backtrack feature, right? That's why that is not supported. So I will show you on this only because in the single AZ, we enable the backtrack. That's why if you enable the backtrack, multi-region is not supported. We have to disable. We can disable and we can try it. Let me disable that backtrack on the single AZ deployment so that I can show you that how can you add a different region to the cluster so that you can create the readers across different regions. But generally there is no use of that because if your application is in one region and the reader is in a different region, there will be high latency, right? That's why we don't prefer. But if your organization has a requirement, then you have to do that. Okay, just I'm disabling the backtrack because to add a different AWS region to the cluster, backtrack will not support. You have to disable the backtrack. Okay, let me refresh. So this database service, we have to wait a lot of time to create everything because in the backend, they will prepare a lot of configurations, replications, right? Copying the database instances. So you have to wait a lot of time. Okay, so here, this is the one, actions, AWS region. One or more DB instances in this cluster has a size that isn't compatible with Aurora Global Database. Then what are the supported sizes? If you would like to create the global databases for the Aurora, like one writer instance in one region, reader in a different region, then the database instances sizes must be somewhere here. They will show that. Wait a second. Where is that? Somewhere they will provide all that instance sizes. Okay, this is the one. Somewhere they will show that like only these instances are supported for Aurora Global Databases. Okay, here it is. I missed that one. DB instance classes. Only these are supported. X2G, R6G, R6I, R5, R3, T4G, T3, T2. But in the T3, you have to check that what all are supported. So actually, these are the supported database engines for database classes. If you are using any of these classes, then only the global database will support. Regular things will not support. R6G, R6I, but you cannot see anything like small or medium kind of a thing, right? From large, it will support. So in the same way, if you see here, T3.small, not supported. At least you should go with medium. We created T3.small, right? Not supported, and it is a no. So the first one is, what is the first one? MySQL or PostgreSQL? MySQL. In the MySQL, for the T3.micro, it is no. T3.small, 1.14.4 and higher, not higher will be supported, not supported in 3.1.0 and higher. So you have to go with the compatible versions, then only it will work. But if you go for the other ones, everything will be supported. Like if you go for large, X large, 2X large, 4X, 8X, they will be supported. The small instances are not supported for the global database. But no one will use the global database feature because we have a latency issues. We have performance issues in case any of the reader which is available in a different region become writer. Your application will not be able to access the writer instance quickly. Okay, it seems all the readers got created. So here is the writer instance available. Reader 3 is available. Reader 1 and reader 2 are still getting modified. That means some configuration is happening. So we will wait till those two are active, like active means available. Then what I do is I will delete the writer instance. The moment I delete the writer instance, one of these readers will become a writer. In these things, reader 3 got created first, right? But we gave this has the tier 0. So this will become a writer. We will check that. Let us wait till all the readers are available. Then I will delete the writer instance. You can see all are available, right? All are available. Now this is the writer instance. I'm going to delete the writer instance. Select the writer instance, click on actions and click on delete. I think everybody knows what is a reboot. System will be rebooted. Delete will be deleted. Take snapshot means manual snapshot. Okay, now I am deleting. Later I will tell you what is a failover. Delete. So here type delete space me. Once the writer instance is not accessible, immediately one of your reader will become a writer. So you can refresh. Still the writer is available. It is not yet deleted. The moment it got deleted, within 5 seconds, one of your reader will become a writer. So you don't get any failure here. So it seems here we got failure, right? The reason is at this moment, your writer is not available at this moment. So immediately after 5 seconds, within 5 seconds, one of your reader will become a writer. So if you do this refresh, even though it became a writer, you cannot see that in the UI. Just refresh the entire browser. So in the UI, you can observe that one of these readers will become a writer. What happened? 1A got writer. So earlier, if I refresh this, you will be connected to that new writer with the same old URL and you will be able to see the data. Because earlier, the moment once the writer is down, we got error. It is unable to load the data. So within 5 seconds, the reader will become a writer. So after if I refresh, the URL will automatically connect to the new writer. No need to modify anything. If there is a necessity of modification, then there is no availability, right? Until you modify the configuration, it won't work. Okay. So now we have a feature called failover, right? What is this failover? Okay. So now I have a requirement that I would like to reboot this instance, like that is running since last 30 days. So just to delete the temp files or something, I would like to restart this machine so that I think the performance might be increased. What will happen if I reboot? It will down, and to become one of these readers to writers, it will take like at least 1 or 2 seconds, right? To avoid that, I can do a manual failover. That means this writer will become a reader and one of the readers will become a writer. So there will be no downtime. Manually, you can create a failover. Like what will happen if something got failed? That we are doing manually. So this writer instance, select the writer, click on actions and click on failover. Then the one which ends with 1A will become a reader. And the remaining, the readers, out of those, one will become a writer. That is what the failover means. Here you cannot see that. Let me refresh. In the backend, that will be updated, but in the UI, you cannot see instantly. It will take some time. Still, that is the writer. I think it was not yet initialized. We initiated a failover and which is not yet completed. You can see the status as failing over. Status of the cluster is failing over, which is not yet failed over. And the status is available, but still you can see 1A as a writer. Let me refresh the page. Especially in the database, everything to get updated in the UI, you have to refresh the browser. Otherwise, there is very less chance to see the changes. So now what happened? Reader 3 became a writer. So now what will happen if I delete this reader instance? Nothing will happen. If I delete the reader instance, nothing will happen. Because that's a reader. Because that is a reader and nothing will happen. And now the same URL got connected to the reader 2. Reader 2 or what it is? Reader 3. Reader 3, it got connected. Because that is the writer. What will happen if I delete this reader 3? If I delete this one, this will become a writer. So what will happen if I delete reader 2? There is no readers, right? What will happen if I delete the last writer? Entire cluster will be deleted. So whenever you observe that there is only one writer is running, you can create the readers manually. You can create the readers manually. But generally there is very less chance that 3 availability zones will goes down at a time, right? Because we maintained 4. We never expect that 4 availability zones will goes down at a time, which is highly impossible. So whenever you see like this, you have to create one more reader, select the cluster, click on actions, click on add reader, so that a reader will be created. What is this second one? Read a replica. You can create a read replica also, which is only available in the read only mode. That will not work in the write mode. That will not become like high availability and all the things. That is only to improve the performance. Like how we created the read replicas for your MySQL database instance. And I never seen any organization using the Aurora as of now. Because they will use like MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle and all the things. Because Aurora and MySQL both are same. But because that is Amazon's own database engine. They are providing you with less cost and with high performance. That is the only advantage. If someone asks you like, instead of MySQL, can I use Aurora? Yes, you can use. There is no drawbacks or disadvantages. You will have some advantages in terms of the charges and the performance. Okay. So here the reader 2 is writer, right? If I delete the reader 2, that entire cluster will be deleted. That's why it is asking like this, because that is a last instance under the cluster. Would you like to create a final snapshot? No. Acknowledge, type delete space me. Whenever you delete the last writer in the cluster, automatically it will delete the entire cluster. Amazon will never create a reader if there is no readers available in your cluster. That's for sure. You are responsible to create the necessary readers under your cluster. Simple thing is high availability. Multi-AG is only for high availability. Read replicas are for high performance. See here, even the cluster is getting created. So in this case, the second instance cluster, we have a cluster and we have an instance, right? Directly, can I select the cluster and can I delete it? You cannot delete the cluster. You can only delete the instances. If that is the last instance in that cluster, automatically the cluster will be deleted. Because here we have only one instance, but there might be a possibility that there are like 3 or 4 instances under the cluster. Sometimes by mistakenly selecting this instance, I might select the cluster. If they allow you to delete the cluster, it will delete all the instances available under that cluster. That's why they will never allow you to delete the cluster. You have to delete the instances individually. So everything will be deleted. So we will write down a simple note about the backtrack because we have enabled. So to understand this backtrack, you have to recollect the point in time recovery. What is the point in time recovery? You can revert back your database to a specific time, right? But the point in time recovery will create a new database which looks like at a specific time. But this backtrack, instead of creating a new database, it will revert back the same database to a specific date and time. So backtrack is used to what we call that, to recover the data from a specific date and time, like point in time recovery. But the difference is backtrack will recover the data into the same database instance. Same database instance. Whereas, or I can say point in time recovery will recover the data into a new database instance. Whereas the backtrack will not create a new database. Instead, it will recover the data from a specific time into the same database instance. That is the only difference. You can use both to recover the data, which looks like at a specific date and time. The difference is the backtrack will recover the data into the same database instance, whereas the point in time recovery will recover the data by creating a new database instance. And the most important thing is backtrack feature is only available for Aurora database engine. And by using the backtrack, you can revert the data maximum 72 hours. In the last 72 hours only you can recover. You cannot go back more than 72 hours. If someone asks you to recover the data in the last week using the backtrack, which is not possible. For that, you have to use point in time recovery, manual snapshot, or automated snapshot. The backtrack is only supported in the last 72 hours. Like I can say from the last 72 hours. So this is about the RDS. The way how to create the databases is the same for all database engines, whether it is a MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL, that doesn't matter. The only difference is with Amazon Aurora. Because in the Amazon Aurora, the database will be created under a cluster. That is the only difference. But the way of creation is the same. Okay. Right. So then we have another things to discuss on databases, which is a NoSQL database. And the second one is OLAP kind of a database. So for the NoSQL, Amazon is providing only one database engine, which is a DynamoDB. DynamoDB, which is a NoSQL database, the only NoSQL database available on AWS platform. If you need any other NoSQL database, you have to install on your own on an Amazon EC2 instance. That's a different one. And then we have another database called Redshift, which is a data warehousing tool. Just we will see where to use it and how to create it. That's it. Because that is a data warehousing tool and we don't use it. That is mandatory for big data kind of a certification. Because we are going to cover all the database types. So we will discuss about that also, which is a Redshift. Mostly tomorrow we can complete those are very small things. You don't get these many features. You don't get these many features like database creation, automated snapshot, manual snapshots, recovery. That's it. Redshift, even we don't use the backups also. Those two things we can complete on Monday's session and we will close the database part. Then we have few other topics left like Elastic Beanstalk, Cloud Formation, CloudWatch, and then Lambda. These are the pending topics. Out of these, CloudWatch is a mandatory for us. Elastic Beanstalk is also mandatory. Like mandatory is there's a developer tool. Cloud Formation is a DevOps tool. Lambda is again developer or DevOps tool. And then we have application services. Even though that is a developer tool, we cannot say developer tool. That is an integration services. That is a mandatory for the certification. After that, we will go with some DevOps tools. Like what is a DevOps? What are the different DevOps tools available? And where to use what kind of tools that we will cover. And then we have an AWS calculator. Once we are done with all these things, we will do some kind of a deployment, like how a production environment looks like, how to create an infrastructure for a production application using multi-AZ, high availability, high security, and high reliability. That will take like 3 to 4 days. Then we will go with some practice questions, like how the certification exam questions looks like. Maximum it will take like 2 more weeks or 2-3 days extra. Mostly by mid of August, we can complete all the topics. Topics wise, we can complete in the next 1 week or so, 1 week or 10 days max. But to complete the deployment of the project or sample question discussions, that might take 1 more week. Okay. All right. So before closing the session, are you guys clear on the RDS or any questions on the RDS part? Okay, then thank you everyone. Let us continue on Monday.